Welcome back, everybody. I'm Lyle, and this is my garage. If you guys have been following along in the video, you know this has taken me a long time to get the parts that are needed for this. I foolishly thought that I could just buy the parts and then put it back together like a normal motor. That wasn't the case. Just real quick backstory, I started undoing this in October. I think I released the first video showing that in December. And then I released another video just last week, which actually showed more clips from October that I forgot I had of me pulling the whole motor apart. In the last 8 months or so, 9 months, however long it's been, I've been slowly just chiseling away at either buying the parts or cleaning and fixing the old ones. And it's been quite a journey, so let's go ahead and let's jump right in. I'm going to show you a little bit about and explain a little bit about every part that I've worked on or purchased, and then I'll insert a little clip of me doing the work that I've slowly been doing or accumulating over the last 8 months. Let's go ahead and start with this top case half. The top case halves are powder coated, I believe. And the reason why I believe that is that paint was so hard to get off, and it was like literally a micron thick. It was the thinnest coat of paint I've ever seen in my life. It did come off slightly with acetone, and I'll show you some clips here in a second of all the work in time lapse. But basically what I did was, after I took it to the machine shop, the local machine shop, and had the guy Paul there run it through his steam cleaner machine, the dishwasher for parts. Got all the crud off. Prior to that, in case you didn't watch the previous videos, I had washed it all with gas to get most of the grease and grime off. I used little tiny wire wheels on my air Dremel tool, and basically, like, not this one, this is a bigger one. I have little ones, I just don't want to pull them out right now, but basically that type of stuff. And use that to get in all the nooks and crannies, especially like in these type of areas, and get all the crud out and the old varnish. And then I had to go through and scrape off all of that stuff off. Got it all painted. Anyways, that's a lot of blabbing. Let's go ahead and let's jump right in. I'll do a little time lapse edit, and you can see right there what's happening, and then we'll check back in a second. see, we got all that done. Unfortunately, somewhere along the way, I lost this piece right here. There's a little C ring that goes in there. Those are those rings that are shaped like a C. Um, and I never even remember seeing it. So part of me thinks that maybe my motor didn't even have that. I went back and I watched the crap out of my first and second video, and I pulled that crank out and I zoom in, but it's just so pixelated. I can never really see if it had the C ring, but I don't think it was actually in there when I got the motor. I also had one of these little dowels missing. So I went and I bought some of those so that way I could have everything legit to lock in those bearings. But that part number for that, in case you guys are missing one of those, 09261-04002. And they were only a couple bucks each on Amazon, so I bought an extra. That's pretty much it for that guy. The water pump, you guys want to do that next? As you might remember, mine had this little tab that was broken off for the weep. So I had to source a new one, or a used one, new to me, off eBay. So I got a new little snail, and I went ahead and polished him. I just figured might as well. So I got that nice and shiny. The water pump, as you guys remember, was a turd that was just rusted beyond belief. And so I'll go ahead and I'll insert in here some of the water pump shots for those of you that maybe didn't watch the prior video. You can see kind of what I was dealing with. Here's a real quick snippet and time-lapse little edit of some of the still shots of the horrible water pump that I had and it coming out and all that. So as you can see, the old one was a real piece of crap, basically. Here's all my stuff for the new one. The new one I got from LylesGarage, I believe is how you say it. I think the K is silent, or it's LylesGarage. Anyways, that's where I got most of my, a lot of my stuff, I should say. I got my connecting rods, bearings, crank bearings, seals from them, but they ended up being ones that I didn't use. But they're pretty nice people in the Netherlands. I think they're in Holland, maybe South Holland. Anyways, they got a lot of parts. It's kind of tough with the language barrier since I don't speak anything else but English because I'm American. So anyways, this was basically the cost of an arm and a leg and another arm and leg. Probably a lot of information here you don't need, but I'm going to give it to you anyways because that's what this show's for. This was 350 bucks, I believe. Maybe it was 390. I don't know. It was a ton. But it's a rebuilt one because there are no brand new ones. I didn't really want to rebuild mine because I had peened out the crap of this piece here. And if you remember, mine was rusted to crap, and there wasn't even that area to lock in a C-clamp or a lock clip thingy. I can't remember what it's called, circlip. So anyways, long story short, I had to mail off mine. They charged me $100 to mail one of my old piece of crap one to there. Then I had to pay $100, I believe, for the shipping back. So this is about $600 part. This I got off of eBay. Somebody is remaking the little impellers, and as far as I can tell, it's a pretty good duplicate, if not exact. I don't think it's NOS. It's on eBay. If I can find the seller, I'll post that in right here. The water pump came with everything that you need, all of the little circlips or whatever you call these things. And what else do I need to explain? Oh yeah, and then there's my locking one. When I first put it into the hole in my engine, it was too loose, and I kind of freaked out thinking that maybe my engine block, the hole had been drilled out or something was wrong with this. It turned out that this O-ring here was just too small that I had got with it. So I went up a 1/2 mil thicker on the O-ring. Same inner and outer diameter, I believe, but it was a 1/2 mil thicker, and that sits in snug now. So we'll get into putting that in later. That's the first thing we're going to put in on the bottom. Um, Next thing is that goes with it. You guys might know about this. Hold on one second. Let me get a little stand set up so I can use both hands. So this is the water pump breather or weep line. And mine actually broke, as you guys remember, or might not. And or rather, it was broke when I opened my case. It was just kind of sitting there next to each other. So that's how it came. I needed to buy another one. The problem was that these are like 70 or 60 bucks for somebody else's used piece of crap one. And I can't stand that. This is garbage. These pieces are obviously throwaway parts. You know, that's a wear item. That's not a life item. So the fact that there's no repops on that is annoying. So what I did was I went and I made my own. It is the exact same measurements, only it is now brand new. And I used stainless steel banjo fittings. I have a stainless steel hose clamp on there, the nice kind. It should never come off. I use silicone tubing that is heat resistant up to like 450 degrees, which we'll never get to on a crankcase, hopefully. And it's also gas and oil resistant. It's also pretty much kink resistant, so when you go real tight, it doesn't kink. And that comes with stainless steel washers with rubber seals instead of the plastic ones, and stainless steel bolts that are also the M6 by 1 millimeter threading. I will be selling these at my eBay store. If you guys are looking for this part and you want a brand new one to put on your rebuild, I'm going to be selling these for a fair price. I'm going to try to find what everybody's asking for their used crappy ones, and I'm going to sell this for even less than those. And it'll be on my eBay store. If you want to find my eBay store, guys, I have lots of different stuff. Not necessarily Suzuki, but lots of different Honda, Aramachi, old school 70s parts for old bikes. You go to eBay and just look up username LylesGarage or search user LylesGarage. Anyways, guys, let's go ahead and let's continue on here. Let's go ahead and let's talk about the head and the cylinders. So the head still got a little bit of corrosion, but I did the best I could, or the best I'm going to do. And then after I cleaned it all, I did polish it. I did a rough polish. I'm probably going to go back and do a fine polishing job later. But here's where we're at right now. Everything looks really crisp and clean. I got all of my threads all cleaned for my spark plugs. I got most of this crud out of the water jacket. I know that doesn't really matter, but my belief on rust is that if it's there, then it's going to grow back faster than if you have clean surface. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just kind of a theory I've created. Here's the cylinders. I've also polished them, but they've set for about 6 months since I polished them, and I probably will redo them, maybe do a little bit better of a job. I did get most of the crud out of the water jacket, but you know, there's only so much you can do. Originally, these were, when I took it to the machine shop, they were a 1/2 mil over, and the machinist said that they were basically perfect at that point. There were some vertical lines, so we did a rough dingle ball type hone and cleaned it up and got some cross hatching, but there was 2 of the cylinders had a little bit of a deep vertical, not even that you could feel, but you could see it and it wouldn't come out. So I was kind of thinking, you know, I wanted it to be cleaned up and better than that. So when I went ahead and bought the pistons, I went ahead and bought just the 1 mil over, went and took it back and had the machinist guy, gentleman, recut them to the 1 mil. So now they are beautiful. There's no vertical runs anywhere in them anymore. There is a razor sharp edge on it, super crisp. And I got the 1 mil over pistons. That gives us a 71 mil on the piston. I wrote it here in case you need to see. Piston bore clearance. The manual said 0.045 to 0.055. I just split the difference, went right in the middle. We went with a 0.05 for our piston bore clearance. If you don't know what that is, that's the space between the piston and the cylinder. Our cylinder's at 71, but our piston is at 70.950, I believe, is what the 70. When you buy a 71 millimeter piston, it's not 71. It's actually, I think, 0.05 mil under. Anyways, so that should give us plenty of room for the rings. That should give us lots of good room for the top end there. I might end up popping these out and changing them. I don't know. That whole oiling system's kind of weird to me. So I got some work video footage of this. Let's go ahead and let's pop that in and show me real quick. Clean up mating surfaces and buffing. And then we'll come back and talk about some other stuff. Alright guys, so now you saw all that. Let's get over here. I got the transmission parts. Let me put you guys on a stand here. And then I can use my fingers and point and such. So we got all the gearbox. Got our Kickstarter. Just like everything, we'll wash it with, it says solvent in the shop manuals. I like gasoline because it's cheap and I have it. I don't have diesel rigs. So I go through and I wash everything with the solvents, and then usually I'll take any of the stainless steel parts and I'll put a little oil coating, or all the bearings I'll put assembly lube in. And then, you know, every few weeks when I'm walking by stuff, I'll spin it. That way the lube kind of is constantly working itself around the bearings. Everything came out really nice. Excuse me. All the parts to me are like basically have very minimal wear. If you look real closely on some of the teeth on the cogs, you can see where there might be some wear, but if we take a listen to the bearings, they're super smooth. So I'm real excited that we got all those done. This guy was rusty and nasty, so I got the rust off, and then I just decided I don't want to paint it. It was a pain in the butt to tape, just to do the red paint. I don't know. Maybe it's going to rust again. I don't know. So I just polished everything. I thought it looked way better. I did a light polish on this too, just to make sure the mating surface or the contact point is nice and smooth. Moving on over here, the Kickstarter, or sorry, the shift shaft. If you remember in the first video, or the last video rather, part 2 of the engine, I had to cut it off because it was bent and I couldn't get it out of the case without damaging stuff. This was kind of a nightmare. This is the second one that I've bought, and they all look like they're the right exact one, but whenever I get them, this piece is always different than mine. So I don't know, you know, is that going to make any difference that this piece for some reason is like 10 mil while this one's 12? I don't know. You can comment that if you guys know the answer to that. I think the important thing is that they hit that stop on that clutch right case cover that has a little thing that holds it and keeps you from being able to kick the shift shaft through or loosen it. So I think that that is going to work. I got that off eBay. It was only like 25 or 30 bucks. So it was a good find. Let's move right along over to the crankshaft that's sitting right there, I guess. And before we get into that, let me show you some of the stuff. So for all of you out there that are debating whether or not to do your crankshaft because of the seals, I had the idea of maybe not doing it, and when all the seals come off and you see them, you realize that they're not soft and supple. It's kind of like hard. This one's a bad one. This one actually is soft for some reason, but these other ones are all hard. And you know, rubber, when it seals, it's got to be supple. It can't be super hard. So I had all the seals replaced. I went ahead and I did all of the connecting rods. I don't think I should have, though. I think the connecting rods that Suzuki made were probably better than the ones I got, but it's too late now. These are the original bearings and connecting rods. And these are the pins that are pressed in that connect all the crankshaft together. And these were my original bearings. So I'm super happy that I went ahead and I did this whole process to get the crank rebuilt. If you have one at home that you're thinking about doing, basically I would do it like this. If you're going to sell the bike as a cheap sell, or you're going to just drive the bike and who cares how it runs, then who cares, right? But if you're doing a restoration, then you have to do these seals. I tried my hardest to try to find ways around it because it's so time consuming and it's so costly. The seals I originally got from Null Narpots were these brown ones, which are commonly known as the Cruisin' Image seals. I don't know anything other than what people tell me, and that's sometimes good, and sometimes in the world of internet is not good. The Cruisin' Image set that you can get off of eBay that comes with everything, all the connecting rods, the bearings, and the seals, and all that stuff, right? It seems to be the fastest way to get the parts. It seems to be the cheapest way to get the parts. It seems to be the way that other people that are selling the parts are selling the parts. They're just buying the Cruisin' Image and selling it. The problem, though, is that I found that the internet people say is the seals aren't as good as the originals or as the black ones that another company made. There wasn't really any repops from Suzuki, so we're just kind of left with all these other ones from other companies. The internet people keep saying that these Cruisin' Image ones have had a few people only have them last for a year or two, or maybe a couple years. If you know what this procedure's like, you don't want to do it twice. It's something you want to do once and then have the bike last the rest of your life. So I went ahead and I had the black seals put on. I have this set, which, you know, if I ever have some motor that I'm not going to do as fancy as this, I'll put these on. I did get everything all done up, the new bearings. New connecting rods. New. So these connecting rods say 310. I think these are the ones that come from Cruisin' Image. Anyways, I got the black seals on, and they are super soft. Got nice brand new bearings. One of the tricky things about the bearings is they have that spot for the dowel, but they're not centered, so you can't just throw the bearings on willy-nilly. Each bearing is specific to where it's at. Yeah. If you know how to do this, then you're a better man than me, or you're just more patient. Let me grab the card real quick, and I can show you who did that, and then you guys can, you guys can bug this guy and have him do yours. This was done at Bilbune Enterprises, and that's going to be in Minnesota, don't you know, by Josh. And Josh is a very nice guy. He answers his phone Very respectable man. Never met him, but from my conversations with him on the phone, I feel very safe sending him my most prized possessions. And that's what this is. You know, when you send off something like this, you really want to trust that the person's going to do it right. Ultimately, I won't know until it's in the bike, but there are tons of reviews on the internet saying that this is one of the best guys in the States to go to. Just to give you some information, I know you're all going to ask. It was only 400 bucks. That's how much it cost to do the rebuild. But I think it cost me 140 or 150 bucks just to send my crank because it weighs so much. And then you have to pay for the shipping back, which is about the same. So now you're up to what, 700 bucks there. We got all the parts, which were about 1,000 bucks. So you're looking at about 2,000 bucks almost in all expenses to get to this point. There's his information. I hope he doesn't mind me sharing. I would imagine since it's his business that this is probably okay. Anyways, guys, got all of that stuff all done. And let's go ahead and let's move on over here. Last few things real quick, guys. We got my O-rings that came with my gasket set. I also got from Gnarl Knobpots. And I got this oil seal kit from eBay. It was like 20 bucks. It came with a bunch of the oil seals. But then it also came with the outer two most crank seals. So I found another place that sells hardware for cheap, and I was able to get a new drain plug for that coolant system because mine was totally eaten up. And then I went ahead and got some of the head bolt lock washers and such. This company sells hardware, has a bunch of good stuff for pretty cheap. I'll put a little something right here, so in case you guys want to contact that company. They seem to have a lot of stuff that other people don't have. And finally, we have all of my hardware and some of the other bits that I've polished. So there's my original drain plug, just eating away. So I polished it. I was going to use it if I couldn't find one, but luckily I found that company with the hardware. So I went through and I polished all of the stuff that goes in the case halves, and then separated them all by their sizes, basically. And I even polished up my ground strap. So I'll insert a little video here of me doing some of the polish work, and then we'll get back in touch with you guys and we'll start the bottom half.